Hello everyone, my name is Leticia Ayasi. I grew up here in Iowa's foster care program. I am an advocate for the foster care system and a mentor for many youth who are growing up in care and recently aged out of the system. I also work as a behavioral health intervention specialist, which means that I work with youth who have behavior problems, as well as with their families on supporting these youth improve their behavior skills. So isolation has been affecting everyone these days, including myself. I haven't been able to see my mentor since March, and she's someone who I really depended on to decompress and work through issues. And she provided me with a sense of family. I would go and make meals with her and her family and spend time with them. And it's been really hard on me not being able to do that. But I know I am not the only person who is struggling with a lack of support and connection from their supportive adults. Statistics have shown that supportive adults do play a big role in the success of foster youth. And now these youth aren't able to see their supportive adults in person, as well as they're not able to attend support groups. Iowa has an advocacy program known as Achieving Maximum Potential, or AMP for short, and we meet twice monthly. We provide the youth with meals, we connect them to resources in the community, we provide them with a sense of family and friend connection and socialization, and provide a safe space for these youth to really connect with those who share the same experiences as them. In my professional career as a social worker, I'm not able to see clients in person like I used to, and video chats don't work for every client. They're less personable. It's a lot harder to keep youth engaged. And this is a time of increased concerns, especially behavior-wise, so it's been hard. So some suggestions that I have are increased and consistent check-ins. This can be via call, text, email, video chat, whatever works, but make sure it's consistent. And when you're doing these consistent check-ins, make sure that you are being very direct in asking these youth how they're doing. Acknowledge the struggles that they might be facing. Keep in mind that it's might be hard for these youth to reach out for help, especially when they know that it might require, increased struggles due to health regulations. Also, keep in mind that vague questions are going to result in vague answers. If you ask a youth how they're doing, it's common to get the response of, "Oh, I'm fine," and that might not always be the case. So make sure you say things like, "Hey, I know we're all struggling with isolation right now. How is that affecting you and how are you coping?" Other suggestions are to send cards, be a pen pal. I don't know if it's the old school me, but I love snail mail. Other ideas are sending care packages just to show that you're thinking of them. And also delivering meals is a good idea. I heard often during AMP meetings that these kids would say that this is the only home cooked meal they got in the month, and that broke my heart. And so now I'm very worried that these kids aren't getting good food during this time of isolation. Something else that I do in my professional career is I like to deliver activity baskets to my clients. And these include games and materials and things that they can use during our virtual sessions to give them a tangible object to connect to me as their supportive adult. So these are just a few of my suggestions to increase support, and I really hope they help you all during this time of isolation.
Hello, my name is Tuan Graziano, and I'm a student of the University of Alaska Anchorage. I'm a community volunteer and youth advocate. I want to talk to you about young people who are facing issues with isolations in these times. At my university, I am a student government leader who works to ensure that students are able to learn and cope in this online environment. As a community volunteer and advocate, I help youth feel supported and cared for in my community. Due to this pandemic, my focus has especially shifted to how isolation has affected myself and my fellow young people. Because of this pandemic, many youth are facing issues related to isolation. In the past, young people already had difficulties reaching out to adults for support. Their connection with supportive adults usually occurred through check-ins and informal conversations that took place naturally, such as before and after class, during lunch, during work, during these interactions. And these organic interactions are much less likely to take place in our current virtual environment. Most meetings these days and interactions are scheduled, timed, and limited to planned topics. It is much more difficult for young people to reach out, speak, and address issues privately with adults. Students who also rely on school or as a supportive and safe environment will now feel the loss of that support due to these changes. And so approaching others for help virtually is considerably more difficult now for young people. But I've identified some of these issues, key issues facing young people. I think it's also important that I provide some solutions for supportive adults to help you bridge that gap. Here are a few ways you can help. First, make a lasting impression on young people. In your interactions with them, make them feel like you will help academically and personally, and that you are open and willing to helping them with any issues they may face. Make them feel like they can reach out to you not only as an instructor or a mentor, but as a fellow human being, person, family, and friend. Second, you can have meaningful connections with young people. This means making them feel that you are reaching out to them not only because you're an adult, but because you genuinely care for them. This goes beyond sending emails and texts, but having tangible connections and communication, such as handwritten cards, personalized notes, and even phone calls where they can hear your voice. At my university, student support staff saw an uptick in phone calls from students compared to emails. And finally, it helped them create peer-to-peer connections that will help support them in their lives. A lot of the friendship, the support systems created within school between young people happen through accident or happenstance. You can help those opportunities create those relationships. It's much more difficult for them to now happen organically and naturally between friends and young people and peer-to-peer connections. So you can step in and help create those environments for those to occur. Some of the simplest ways have been sharing homework, going to lunch, doing activities together, small things that allow young people to connect with other young people. And as a supportive adult, you are able to do that. I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful and informative. You can find more information on the youth.gov website. Remember, never give up on young people. Every little bit matters, and everything you do to help them will count and make a difference, even if you don't think it does. Thank you.
This is a difficult time for all of us as we're in social isolation and social distancing. But it's particularly difficult for young people, for adolescents and young adults who really need relationships and connections as they are developing their sense of identity and understanding of who they are in this world and who they want to become. And so we're hearing the collective voice of young people today saying that this isolation is hard and we're craving connection. And we have to listen to that voice. And the truth is that the trends of the data on increased reports and feelings of loneliness and isolation occurred before we even went into this pandemic. And so this pandemic has brought to light and really exasperated those feelings of isolation for a lot of young people. And so we have to be aware of that and to understand that. And we're seeing more data come out about the impact of isolation on mental health, in particular for young people. And no doubt we'll continue to see that as we are in this unprecedented time. But we have to start to understand how we make connections, and we have to be committed to making connections with young people right now, because the antidote to isolation is the quality of relationships. And so here at Search Institute, we take relationships seriously, and we have invested in trying to understand at a deep level what a developmental relationship does for young people. And we have found that developmental relationships are powerful shapers of positive youth outcomes like social emotional competencies and motivation and feelings of autonomy and agency and a sense of connection to the community. And so this becomes really important, and we know that people talk about relationships as being important, but it can be really hard to be intentional about building relationship. What are the building blocks of a developmental relationship? And so we at Search have found these 5 components as being really critical as the building blocks of a developmental relationship that can be a map for caring adults, for practitioners, trying to build positive relationships with kids. And I think they're particularly important in this era of craving of connections for young people. And so the first one is just simply expressing care. And that is to let the young person know that you matter. I see you. You are a person of value. And I care about you, and I want to understand what you care about, and to find that spark that's within the young person, that taking the time to ask about that. But we can't just stop there right now. We also have to begin to continue to do the second thing, which is challenging growth. And challenging growth is really saying, I believe in your potential, that even though it's a difficult time, let's talk about what you still want to accomplish and move towards those goals. But you can't just set goals with young people. You also have to show that you're going to provide support, that you communicate that I know it's really hard for you right now, but I'm consistently here for you. I'm going to show up every day, and we're in this together. It's a struggle for all of us, but I want you to know you can count on me to walk with you through this difficult time. And then the fourth component of developmental relationships is to share power. And I think one way we can share power right now with young people is to invite them into the conversation about the solution for connection. And we know that they're craving connection and they're expressing that, but inviting them in to help us understand solutions to making connections, whether that's saying, instead of assuming that they don't want to see face to face, if it's possible, coming up with a solution of going to a park and having your mask on and staying social distance, but there's this human connection with them that still honors the social distancing. And then finally, it's expand possibilities, is that we have to look for what resources young people need right now and begin to plug young people into those resources, whether it's tangible resources like food, and there's a food shortage, or there's a mental health needs or emotional needs, or whatever those resources are. We have to be serious about expanding those possibilities for them. And the final thing I'll say that I think is important too is that as a practitioner, I'm a marriage and family therapist, it is really hard right now for us. It's hard to make those connections. And many of us have our own struggles during this time of social distancing and feeling isolated. And what I find to also be important, and what we see as a benefit of developmental relationships as well, is it can provide a sense of purpose for us. It's a reminder for us of why we do this work. Why do we want to empower young people, walk alongside young people? And sometimes I need to remind myself of that deep meaning that I get in relationship with young people. And so when I'm struggling with motivation, sometimes I have to go back to my sense of purpose and meaning. The young people need us. They're craving the connection. Let's go out there together and make those connections and develop those developmental relationships so we can really get through this together.